As someone who never even watched the original Game of Thrones series and has never read the books and is probably never going to do either of those two things, I watched the first episode of the new Game of Thrones series, the House of Dragons. It seemed like a good spot to jump on without knowing anything, and I was at least right about that. It's well, I've heard from friends and from other people online that like it certainly like references a lot of things that we know from, or things that are known from the books and the show, and it's got Easter eggs and all of that kind of stuff, and that's great. I'm happy for people who know that stuff, but as someone who knows none of it, I found it very welcoming to the world, to the story. I don't really know anything other than what the prophecy at like the end of the episode references, stuff that like I think most people just know about the Game of Thrones show from it being so popular when it was, which winter is coming, and the prophecy at the end references that. So I got that, but I know nothing else, and I totally followed along. It's totally fine. This prequel series is about 200 years before the events of the Game of Thrones series, so there's no overlapping characters, unless the dragons are overlapping, which I guess I don't know if they are or aren't. But people don't really live to be over 200 years old, especially in Game of Thrones. From my understanding, the life expectancy of all characters can be very short. So I hopped in completely fresh, and I was, pleasantly surprised. I have heard that the Game of Thrones series was phenomenal when it started and then tapered off until the last season. Everyone seems to universally hate. So I'm sure from people who went through all of that, there was a lot of hesitation going into this. And I haven't heard like, oh my god, this is peak Game of Thrones, like it's back. But I've heard pretty, positive reactions of like, yeah, this is a good start, and that's how I feel also. This was a good start. I watched it to be like, oh, is this something that I want to get into? Well, I'll watch the first one, see how it goes, and maybe I'll stick around, and it at least succeeded in keeping me hooked enough to come back next week and see where the story goes and where the characters go. I'm a fan of who I assume will be our 2 or 3 main characters. Matt Smith's character, who I assume will be the antagonist, but he does a very good job of being a nuanced character. He could have very easily been just a authoritarian monster. And there are certainly like scenes, like the first main scene that he's in when he comes in with the Crown Guard or whatever they're called. I'm not going to get any of the proper nouns right yet. Give me some slack. But when he comes in and is just police stating the city at night, I mean, that was brutal. But then there were scenes where I like thought, oh, at the funeral he's going to be like, ha ha ha, now I'm for sure the heir and stuff like that. But no, he had actual like sympathy, and it felt like it was real sympathy for the death, even though, yes, later on he acknowledges that it does benefit him, but he's not a heartless monster, while he will probably go on to be the antagonist of the show. He's not two-dimensional, which was very cool to see. I liked the princess, who's, again, Daenerys? Maybe? Who I assume will be our protagonist going forward. A lot of this episode was through her eyes primarily. We got to see some stuff that she wasn't privy to until later, and obviously scenes where she wasn't there, but it seems like this will mostly be from her point of view. And I really enjoyed her. I enjoyed the scenes that she shared with Matt Smith's character, because up until the very end of the episode, it doesn't seem like they're poised to be antagonists at all until the situation of politics kind of puts it to that's probably where this is going. And the King character, who seems like he could stick around to be a main character, but also knowing Game of Thrones' reputation, I wouldn't be surprised if he's dead next week. I enjoyed all 3 of those main characters. I enjoy the themes that are being put down, especially there's a lot of emphasis on women's place in the politics of this world. And again, I don't know anything about Game of Thrones or much, but I think there are women leaders in that time. Arya Stark is a name that I've heard. So I assume that the world progresses to become a bit more accepting of women in leadership, but again, I don't know. But where the show starts off, it very firmly establishes no. The first king, or the great king who's been king for 60 to 70 years, is dying, and he doesn't have a male heir or a male child, so then there's a council that's held to figure out who the heir should be. His oldest child, a daughter, or his oldest male relative who's like a cousin or something. And the cousin wins by a lot. Because men in power don't want to give up their power, or the power of men over this patriarchal society. And with this episode ending with the princess being named the new heir to the throne as opposed to the king's brother, I think that's going to be the cause of a lot of conflict. And also seeing the king's wife, I don't know if she's actually referred to as queen in this, but just for simplicity, I'll refer to her as the queen. Her statements on a woman's place in this position of power, and then ultimately her death at the choice of her husband, because this is a patriarchal society. Just all of that creates a theme of gender politics within this world, and certainly the bodily autonomy discussion that can come from her dying in childbirth from a C-section that she was violently against and was violently shown. And Game of Thrones is also known for a lot of violence and sex, though I think the creators have said they're going to not be as gratuitous with this series. Not to say that there wasn't, I mean, that the C-section scene was rough to watch. I like close my eyes for bits of it. I am a bit squeamish with things like that. So they're not shying away from doing it, but it was done with a purpose, and I think the purpose was to drive home more the message of women's autonomy and power in this society. So I'm excited to see where that goes. And all of the other characters seem like they could have like interesting ways for stuff to play out. I understand that the like political backstabbing, all of that is a lot of what Game of Thrones already did. But one, I haven't seen it. And two, I hope that this show approaches it through a new lens, not just for like the sake of people who have seen it already, but also just so that way, you know, we can have some more in-depth discussions on topical things. Bodily autonomy in the first episode, when Roe v. Wade was stricken down from the Supreme Court stupidly this year. Topical, on point, down for it. So yeah, I enjoyed the first episode. I plan on continuing to watch it until I don't enjoy it anymore, or until it's done. So yeah, that was my point of view as someone who has not seen Game of Thrones and doesn't know much about it. Let me know what you thought down in the comments below. Light on spoilers down in the comments below. I'm interested to hear your thoughts. But thank you very much for watching, and have a good week.